We're on a train, we're on a journey, and some might get off sooner, others get off later, but be prepared for all eventualities. And how do you do that? You ensure that everyone around you is empowered. If one piece falls, the others can continue. For me, that has been my leadership motto, that I will not have everything by myself. And also, I won't be the only one visible. Everyone has to be visible. So I like to lead from behind, basically, and let others, especially young ones, go. I'm satisfied that I'm not going to be a burden as I leave the space, because others can continue. We have a lot of captains who can jump in.
Absolutely. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're listening to us from. Welcome to another episode of Footprints. I am in the beautiful city of Nairobi on the 11th floor of a building, so you can imagine the beautiful views that we're looking at, my guest and I. And I am happy to introduce my dear friend and comrade in arms in the fight for justice for women, Faiza Mohammed. Faiza, you're welcome to Footprints.
Thank you, Jackie.
And I want you to take us way back to the little girl that Faiza was. What were you like? What did you like eating? What did you like playing? What didn't you like? How was school? Take us back there.
Wow. Thank you very much for the opportunity. As a little girl, I grew up with 8 siblings. So I'm number 2. So kind of the leader for the younger ones.
Yes.
My elder sister, of course, being the first, is always with adults, and that's how her behavior shaped.
Yes.
For me, I was more playful. I had 3 brothers right after me, so we'll play a lot. I used to climb a lot of trees, walls, biking, all those of things. And early on, I pushed my dad to enroll me, teach me how to play tennis, because I saw him playing tennis. That became one of my best hobbies, and so that's how I started growing up in a community.
For those who don't know you, Faiza, where are you from? When you say home,
okay, home, home is what is now known as Somaliland. Somaliland and Somalia joined in 1960 after independence from British and Italian. But then after the war, from the former dictator, the whole country collapsed, and Somaliland decided to be independent country. So I come from that part. Over the years, it has been a quite interesting journey for me. Getting to know the whole country, traveling a lot, especially during the conflict. To see, how different places people were faring, and uniting with women across borders to just see how we can clear this mess that the country has found itself in, and build, put it back on its feet. So a lot I can say has been the contributions of women that has made the Somalis to survive and come out of the conflict. Of course, we are not fully out. There's still skirmishes here and there, and as usual, boys are fighting over politics. But life continues, and people are building in the same way.
So, but as a little girl, you were, not aware of all these things. As children are, they are innocent about what's happening.
Yeah.
So, what subject did you like in school? What did you eventually study?
Initially, I used to be interested in biology. I was fascinated by learning about the body and how it functions. Eventually, when I came out of high school, I decided I would go for management because I saw that I am into organizing, and I thought that's maybe where my passion is. Although in the beginning I used to think I would be a pilot. I used to dream to be the first pilot, Somali woman pilot, and then one day I was introduced to another woman who, she was elder than me, and of course she was in the military, and I was told she's the first pilot. And so there goes my dream.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
like, okay, not interested anymore. So I ended up going to Sudan for management study. I went to Ahfad University College for Women, where I met a lot of made a lot of good friends, and it was interesting because our culture is not so different, and the people just look like us. So I found after 4 years I went back home. So my dream was to be with the UN because I saw that it's a noble organization. They're trying to, prevent wars in the world, and they're trying to help, humanitarian and so on. So every time I would go back home and work for a UN agency as an internship under the internship program, and I remember during my last year of finishing the college, the World Food Program told me they would be interested to give me employment if I come back. So I went back and joined them, and I was with them only for 2 months because I found out a program was starting, a master's program by University of Fresno at California, and they were bringing the program to home. It was supported by the World Bank, and the government felt that people were leaving, they were not coming back when they went abroad, so they wanted to bring the program home so that people stay in and benefit from the talent and knowledge that is gained. So it was mostly for public employees, but they were giving limited space for individuals who are from the private. So when I heard about this, I didn't want to miss this opportunity, so I went for it, and I resigned from the job with World Food Program. But I made sure that I recommend someone good for them, that they can feel that I didn't desert them.
Yes.
So that happened, and I did my master's program there. I was among the top 10 when we graduated, so we were taken to Fresno itself, where we stayed for 6 months. The intention was that we come back and we will be, professors in the new program that was kicking off. Because this time, USAID was interested to continue the program, and several universities were bidding for it, Fresno among them, and they were advantageous because they were already set up and all that. And then, fortunately, out of the 10, only 3 of us came back after the stay in Fresno. And USAID was not happy with that, and Fresno was not happy because that has jeopardized their bid,
Yes.
But I came back and did my giving back, because it was a free program. It was a loan to the Somali government from the World Bank. So I contributed by running the program for the last group to graduate, and I was assistant professor to one of the professors. And once I completed that, I felt like I've done my dues, like paid for the investment made in me, and then applied for an opening that came up from UNFPA. Mm-hmm. So I joined UNFPA until the war happened in Somalia. So during the UNFPA program, we're supporting the Ministry of Health on sexual reproductive health rights issues and other maternal health matters, and so I get more exposed into the sufferings that women go through. Female genital mutilation was one of the key issues that the women's movement there were picking up. And so when the war happened, everything collapsed. Everybody was only safe to go back to where you came from. Yeah. Because within your community, you can be protected because everybody knows you, the clan system, So mass migrations happened. I was fortunate to go to Djibouti and to report there to the UN office and explain, how the things were. And so they told me to hold on, stay in Djibouti and just monitor what's going on. So after a while, I got frustrated. I'm like, I need to do work. Mm-hmm. I need to move on, or, give me a real job, or, just monitoring is not something. Then they sent a mission to Djibouti and asking me to be part of that mission. So that was exciting time, just because they were setting up their first UNFPA program there. This was in 1991. So I worked with the team, and we did a report guiding how the program should shape and so on. Soon after that, I left them because there was no more real work coming up. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna stay on. Eventually, I went back home and I joined Care International. So was running their office in Hargeisa, Somaliland, and was there with them until there was some civil conflict started. But eventually continued with Care. I had to go to Mogadishu though. And in Mogadishu I was doing their training program. They had training program for partners, the civil society. They were giving sub-grants. And I was, during that time, met with a group that came to visit and meet with women, Somali women. So during those discussions, I linked it up with Novik, who was part of that group. They were looking for someone who can help them build the program and guide them to who is a real civil society organization. Because during the UNISOM mission in Somalia, that's the United Nations mission in Somalia, a lot of organizations popped up. You can imagine there's a collapse, no state, no income. So they set up organizations to access resources because they were giving out grants, even for cleaning purposes, collecting garbage. So it was unclear after they left, and some, of course, immediately died out, but there were still many, and so they were like, we don't support international organizations. We like to support directly local organizations, but we don't know who to trust and so on, so we'd like someone to guide us. So I became that person. And that is the time when I started now working more closely with the women's organizations, getting to know more about the country. I would do daring journeys that I never thought of I will do, like traveling by sea from one corner to another. Because in Somalia at that time, businesses were working together across borders. They were investing together, building telephone companies, and these what they call money transfer companies, all of us. So they were working together. Politicians were kind of meeting many times because international community were organizing conferences for them. But civil society were isolated from one another. They were not connected. So one of the things I tried to impress on the organization was that facilitate those interactions to happen. And so we looked for projects that can bring them together. And one of them was environmental, because they were keen also to support the rural community, which is the backbone for the economy of the country most times. And there was a lot of desertification because of the trees being banned for charcoal purposes and so on. And there was an expert from America who was internationally also advising World Bank and others. Previously in the country, there used to be plantations going on. So his advice was, don't think about plantations. The seeds are already in the ground. Let's work on those. So introducing new simple concepts to the organizations. And some of them really did something with it, with the knowledge, and it was amazing. And it was one of the things I feel, proud about, that I was able to do that. The next thing was, how do we resolve the Somali situation in the south, where it was under a lot of warlords. Even to cross from one side of the city, where they used to call it the Green Line, you had to be very careful, do a lot of checks before you can cross. Somalis, they chew the chat. It's a leaf. I don't know, it's kind of a drug, I think, and it keeps you awake. So they give that to the young boys who are carrying the guns, and it's addictive because they look for it all the time. So if they don't have someone paying for them, it's easy for them to kidnap someone, get ransom, so that they can buy those leaves. So you have to be very careful and find out, is anything going on today? What are the warlords up to? And if there's some fighting going on, then you know that the boys are busy somewhere. And the cities will be more safer to cross the green line and so on. Yeah, so it was interesting times, very dangerous, and you were living out of suitcases. But collectively we came together during a training. The International Alert provided trainings on peace building. I don't know how they got my name, but they invited me to Harare, where they brought women from different places and they were training us on peace building. So obviously it was an important moment for me because the country was going through such difficult time, and I was trying to gain a lot of strategies that we can apply. And one thing that struck me was a model which they were calling inverted commas, that came up in one of their trainings somewhere in Latin America. And that I took that model back and applied with the colleagues in Somalia, saying, okay, let's look at this inverted triangle. Why is it like this? It's problematic because it's not at its space, it's, but it's not falling because there are pillars that are holding it, So if our problem of no peace is this triangle, then there are those pillars which are holding it to be in this situation. So why are we in this situation? And let's define, therefore, which are these pillars and what interest they have in having this situation to remain like this. So everybody started defining the warlords. Even the international community was considered as one of the pillars because they were siding with different warlords. They were problematic in many ways. Media, the elders, their role was undermined because the warlords are now more powerful, so the traditional ways were not working. And eventually, people said also, even us, as civil society, we are a problem because we are not taking any action. We're just trying to give humanitarian support here and there, but we're not really taking action to break this cycle. So then it became, okay, what can we do? Let's start from ourselves. Before we go anywhere else, let's start from ourselves. So that's how everybody then came together under an umbrella called Peace and Human Rights Network. And that was the starting point for a revolution of change. And a lot of activities were done because it brought together a civil society from all spheres of life. The media were there, the elders were represented, religious guys were there, even former guys who were formerly in the militia. So, their kind of contribution was to get the voice out, because you are their role models, so you can play a role. So all of that led to the dismantling of the Green Line, because they organized so many neighborhood activities. So soon we started seeing, peaceful neighborhoods. And then some guys from Canada came back, because the diaspora started now feeling brave to come back also. And they started radio programs where people can call in and ask questions. So they will bring different politicians to be on air, and so that people can question them. And another organization started dialogues, bringing together all the politicians and asking them, okay, all these conferences that you have held outside the country, why are we failing every time? Why is it, it was, I think, more than 10 conferences that were held. So for me, I went to one of those sessions and I saw some people whose names people are fearing, who are associated with the big warlords, the untouchables. When I saw those people coming to the meetings is when I had a good hope that something is changing. Because now they were listening, they were coming and they were discussing, Then another opportunity arose where the government of Djibouti, the president, was organizing a Somali reconciliation conference. And he was adamant that it will be just a Somali affair, so he was ensuring that there's no international interference. Because Djibouti is also mostly 3 ethnic groups, Somalis, Yemenis, and Afar, and the majority are the Somalis. So the president is a Somali himself. Said, we'll do it in the traditional way and you guys come up with a solution. And nobody goes out. You enter Djibouti, you cannot go out anymore because they confiscate your passport if you are coming for the peace conference. And then you do your thing, whatever you have to say. And a civilian government was elected from that peace conference. And then one day you went back. It's amazing how the people welcomed them. And one of the pillars of the inverted triangle was Ethiopia. People saw Ethiopia as a problematic country that was not interested in stabilization of the Somali nation. So when you plan to do something, you have to think about the consequences that can come. Now you're trying to break the pillars, but how will the pillars react?
Yes. Yeah.
So Ethiopia convened the warlords, making them come and unite and fight against this government that's in opposition to you. So still there was a period of where the government is sabotaged and, limping and so on. Then it ended up another peace conference back here in Kenya. Still civilian governments continue because the mentality of the people has even now changed to seeing more the light and seeing a civilian government, as opposed to having these warlords. But the other group that benefited was the Islamists. They became stronger, And then Ethiopia invaded Somalia. And that was a good rallying point for them to now call out and, let's fight the invader. So that's how then Al-Shabaab also formed. And now there's still a problem in the south, but differently, Somaliland resolved through traditional means all the problems that the clans were having, the conflicts they were having. And today they're enjoying the sixth president, arriving through a peaceful transfer of power, elections. There is a parliament, there is a House of Lords, where the elders sit and, talk about, it's similar to the House of Lords because it's the traditional elders from all the clans that are, making decisions and and each one has to influence one another, aside from the judiciary also. So those are the four arms of government, of the state. That's the environment I've grown up with. By the time the Peace and Human Rights took off, I also was really tired, and I needed to go back to a normal life.
Yes.
And
how many years had this been of doing all this?
I was there between 1995, beginning of 95. It was 3 years, up to mid 98. So I took the offer of job with Equality Now, and started the Africa office in Nairobi.
What was that like, starting something new? Because Equality had New York.
They were in New York only.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the listeners who don't know what Equality Now is or does, can you just summarize?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So Equality Now was founded by 3 women, Jessica Newart, who's an American lawyer, and Justice Nafi Tambile, who was the former High Commissioner for Human Rights. She was president of the Rwandan Tribunal also, when it was established in Arusha. And another lady called Ferial, she passed on. She's an American, Iranian-American. The initiator is basically Jessica Newart, who consulted with her friends. She used to work with Amnesty International, and she tried to address women's issues, but Amnesty was not interested because they were more interested in political cases, freedom of speech and so on. So she left and said she wanted to start an organization that's just purely focused on women's rights. And after consultation with Navi and Ferial, they decided to set up Equality Now. Yeah.
So then, how long after they had established Equality Now were they now starting an African office?
It was in 98, which is therefore 6 years later, that they decided to open an Africa office.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we didn't open until 2000. The process took a bit. So Equality Now's focus is around advocating for protective laws and repeal of discriminatory laws, So protective laws like, stop FGM, so that girls cannot be cut and so on, ending child marriage, giving women opportunities also to be leaders, so there's no inhibitions in law to prevent women to participate politically or even pass their nationality to their kids, where in many countries only the man can pass his, So it basically creating international pressure on countries to comply with their obligations under international law. Also in their laws, if they are compliant with the international law. So that has been and still is the main focus for Equality Now. All the thematic areas has been developed as focus areas, like doing work around ending harmful practices with focus on female genital mutilation and child marriage, and also ending sexual exploitation. Women are exploited sexually through trafficking and other means, and nowadays also digital spaces has become a big problem, and also sexual violence. Rape laws, how are they protecting women? What kind of justice are survivors of sexual violence getting? How do we make sure that the laws are working to protect women? And how is it possible to ensure that it is not a long route for them to get justice when they are violated? But one of the big projects that Africa Office contributed to the work of Equality Now, but also to the continent, is rallying around the Maputo Protocol, the protocol on the rights of women in Africa. Yeah.
And we would celebrate each country that signed on.
Yes.
What was the campaign called?
The coalition that came together is Solidarity for African Women's Rights.
Solidarity Now. Yes.
So we'll engage member states. It was very efficient for us to be at the summit space, because then you don't need appointments. Once you are security cleared, you can just walk to the foreign ministers and engage with them. And so we'll go as a group from different parts of Africa, so that each one can speak in the language that the country speaks, and engage with them, and then we'll debrief, and then we'll go. And today the coalition is about 70 organization members. And of course, different organizations have different mandates. And the protocol offers a lot of, areas of focus. So people are working on different articles. So what united is that we are all committed to the protocol, but we each work in the concerning articles to make a difference. And in that way, hopefully, we all collectively contribute to implementation of the protocol. So the way the coalition is set up is we took the African Union regional breakdown. So there is about 5 regions. We have Make Every Woman Count, who is working with Equality Now as part of the secretariat. They are responsible for the communications, and we are responsible for coordinating the coalitions. The other thing is each organization has responsibility to bring their own resources to implement anything that will support the implementation of the protocol. So it's a shared, responsibility, shared resources, and what basically I feel is importance is the consistency in order to bring impact. The journey may be long, but with the collective support of each other, we are able to go through it. And many minds, of course, bring solutions better. And so there's good hope. Now we have 46 ratifications out of 55.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So we hope the remaining ones will be on board soon.
So when you look at where you are now, what are those things you would tell to young leaders? What have you learned in your leadership journey? Leading at your organization, but also leading others towards big things like
So I think it's important to always think that you are not the only one who can do everything. A finger cannot do one thing; it needs the hand, and one hand cannot do things more. Both hands, and many hands, therefore, are even better.
So there's an African proverb that says, "Many hands make work light."
Yes. We have something similar in my language as well.
Can you say it in your language? I cannot repeat it.
But basically saying hands can do more together. Also that this is a journey. I always say it's a train. We are on a train. We are on a journey, and some might get off sooner, others get off later. But be prepared for all eventualities. And how do you do that? You ensure that everyone around you is empowered. If one piece falls, the others can continue. For me, that has been my leadership motto, that I will not have everything by myself. And also, I won't be the only one visible. Everyone has to be visible. So I like to lead from behind, basically, and let others, especially young ones, go. Many people told me, young ones told me that you threw us in the ocean, but you didn't allow us to drown. So extend a helping hand to where someone needs, but then let them do the swimming. Because I believe also when you miss steps is when you learn from them. If you say this, verbally tell someone this will be the wrong way, as opposed to them trying it out and finding out, it's much faster for them to learn it that way. So that's what I believe. That's one of the important points. And what I realize is that, of course, as we get older and move out, then others need to come in. So we don't need to create a gap where we miss the continuity. So if you look at the team that's now working with the protocol, if I face out, I'm not worried about it. Because there are so many people who have interest in this, who are working and who are bringing others along also. So that's my key thing. I think it worked for me, and I feel. I'm satisfied that I'm not going to be a burden as I leave the space, because others can continue. We have a lot of captains who can jump in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think when I look back at your journey, I see a person who is a nurturer. I see a person who has brought people together to work on a shared vision, and who is strong but very calm, very understated, and yet who moves things and moves people. So thank you for the work that you've done for this continent.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you also did in my life. I don't remember now. I'll tell the listeners this story, that there's a time you gave me an opportunity to work with Equality Now when you were evaluating your work on female genital mutilation. I think we traveled to Tanzania, was it? Someplace in Tanzania. And I'd known about it. I mean, in the periphery. I'd never worked with communities that are trying to create change around an issue like this. And so for me, it was a lot of learning. But like you said, I think I'm one of those who you pushed it. I had never done something like this. It was my, between you and Winnie Vyanima, because when she was the AU gender director,
Yes.
she also gave me a consultancy and said, help me summarize the reports, the women's rights reports, because I think governments, report on what they're doing. And that seemed, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? And even yours, it was like, oh my goodness, I've been given a, I think like this to carry. So thank you for pushing all the women that you have pushed.
Thank you.
To do the right thing for women.
Thank you
to
for your
learn
kind
and to
words.
grow. To learn and to grow.
One other thing I also, in my journey, I learned is give people opportunities. Because I was given an opportunity at a time when I was not even connected to the African women's movement at all,
Yes.
And there was a colleague that was hired for MENA, the Middle East and Africa region. And one of the questions some of the colleagues were raising is that, she's a professor, she's not connected, and so on, So when my boss asked me, what do you think? I said, do you know, I didn't know anyone when I came.
Yeah.
Give her a chance.
Yes.
Because she's good in all these other qualities, and I'm sure she will make the connections,
Wow.
So I believe you have to make the connections. The opportunity for people, and they will thrive,
Yeah.
Just be confident that they can do it.
Yeah.
Thank
Faiza,
you.
thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm sure it's not yet done. So hopefully in 20 years we shall come back and sit here again.
Actually, earlier you mentioned that some people write books, and
Yes.
I've been thinking about that.
Wow.
And people have been encouraging me to do so. So don't be surprised if you see one.
I know. I'll be looking forward to it. I'm sure it will have many more amazing stories than a podcast will allow us in terms of time. But congratulations.
Thank you.
You've done well, Faiza.
Thank you.
And
I
it's an
appreciate
honor
it.
to sit here with you.
Yeah, equally enjoyed time with you, and I think I came to you in 2000 when I was opening the office, and you were heading ONET, and so it's basically 26 years, I think, that I've known you.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
a long time.
So-
that's a long time. That's a generation.
Yes, so I'm happy to reconnect again, and hopefully more spaces and opportunities
Absolutely.
to collaborate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Faiza.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for listening to us. I hope you've picked up a thing or two from our conversation that you can apply in your life as a leader, that can augment what you teach others as you lead. Thank you so much for listening in. Bye.